is to know, from masterpieces to deep fried tacos. And if the movie sucks, you might hear them say, there's no telling where the guys will take you. Get ready for a spoiler. Won't say it twice, cause we already warned you. Better watch out, it's gonna ruin the plot. Real spoilers.
No way.
Real spoilers.
I wanted to. Okay, cool.
Real spoilers.
Broadcasting from the lush but not lavish studios located in the basement of the O'Keefe Institute for Advanced Film Snarkitude, this is Real Spoilers, episode 726, A Man Called Ottawa.
Oh, that sounds right.
Sure, why not? So I guess let's go around the table and everyone can introduce themselves.
This is Kevin.
This is Tom. We are Joe-less this week. So what do you have? His anniversary or something?
Something like that.
Something like that.
Slacker. Shows his dedication to the show.
Marriage. Yeah.
We've never let personal things get in the way of this show.
That's why he's the only one of us who hasn't been divorced. No,
we threw it all away for Real Spoilers.
Yes.
And our love.
Yes, my first wife was an absolute angel, and I regret the failure of that marriage ever so much.
Nothing will get between me and Tom in this show.
Yeah.
I was deathly ill 2 days ago, and I said, I have to get over here to do the show.
Yes. I was like, COVID be damned.
Yeah. I did take a test. I'm negative for COVID. Just very bad food poisoning.
And I'm just negative in general.
There you go. Exactly. And our two negatives turn into a positive.
How about that?
And that's your show.
And 3 rights make a left. So
yeah. And if Joe was here.
Yes. Now, if we were in Germany.
Exactly.
You'd make my bunk. So shameless plugs. Don't forget we're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts. Wherever you find a podcast, you can find us while you're there. Be sure and follow us so you never miss an episode. Maybe leave us a review so the people that come along after you know that we're worth checking out.
Some really nice reviews lately.
Yeah, no, it's been nice to see those popping back up again.
Yeah, it's nice. I mean, it's always nice to hear your kind words. And then also, in addition, it helps the algorithm.
Yeah.
The more positive reviews we get, it bumps us up when you're looking for film and television on Apple Podcasts and Spotify for film and all that stuff. Like, those really do mean something. So if you can take a couple of minutes, we love to hear it, and it will help more people find the show.
Absolutely. So also, you can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/Real Spoilers. While you're there, like the page, join the group. The group is called the League of Show Sharers. We're hoping maybe you'll share an episode. And some people were kind enough to do that last week, and we read their names. So hopefully we get everybody. We shared it late because Kevin was, Kevin. And so...
Sorry, I was over there sick. I wasn't going to post the episode this week, but we had some troll, some guy with like a middle initial on his name, told me that I better get that episode up. So I felt obligated to. So I was sick in bed trying to edit. So if I miss any curse words or anything, you're welcome. I know you all love that.
They love it when you miss a curse word.
And like I said, we're ducking and dodging the FCC every time.
So people who were kind enough to share an episode this week: Julianne Jordan, Chris Valls, Gabrielle Lugo, Tammy Lynn Powers Betts, Travis Tewitt, Chris Magic Man, Lane Levanway, Ralph Tribble, Heather Sachs, We Have a Hulk, Nostalgia Cast, Mike and Oscar, Minorities Report, Geek to Me Radio, Dissect That Film, Binge Movies, Invasion of the Remake, Feel and Film, Matt Niglia, Ryan Terry, and Colby Mack, and In Session Film. So thank you very much. We greatly appreciate that. And finally, don't forget we have a Patreon where for $5 a month you get all sorts of bonus content, and we like you a little extra. So there's all that. Let's dig in to A Man Called Ove.
All right, so this film is actually an adaptation of a book. They had made a Swedish film called A Man Called Ove, which is the title of the original book.
Ove or Ove?
I think
I
you
don't know
call
how
it
Swedish
like
works.
I think you say ova, or
ovary.
So it's based on a 2012 novel of the same name by Fredrik Backman, and it is about a grumpy old man, very much like this one is. I didn't watch the entire Swedish film. I wanted to watch it, but was tired and sick. But this is, it's an adaptation of a book, so I don't know if you call it a remake in this case or if it is a new adaptation. It's hard to say, but it's a very similar movie. I watched maybe the first 30 minutes, and very similar. Now, I don't know if that's because they're very truthful to the book or if they're, whatever the case may be, but they are very similar. I think casting Tom Hanks was the wrong choice from a movie perspective. From a business perspective, I get it. He's Tom freaking Hanks. And you're saying it's doing well, so I get what they were trying to do. But
you spend the whole movie being like, why aren't you Clint Eastwood?
Yeah, I mean...
Although Clint Eastwood has kind of made this movie 5 times at this point.
Yeah, but I mean, even when Tom Hanks did an interview with Stephen Colbert, Stephen Colbert says, what are you doing in this movie? And he's like, I'm the cranky old man, the get off my lawn. That's the first thing he says. And it's like, get off my lawn is from Gran Torino.
Right.
That's the only reason anyone says get off my lawn is Gran Torino.
Well, people said it before that.
I know, but that's what they're, but when you say cranky old man, get off my lawn, we all know that because of Gran Torino. And that's kind of what this movie is doing. And Clint Eastwood does that. And I can think of a couple other actors that I think would be really good in this role. Tom Hanks is Tom Hanks, and he's a brilliant actor. We all know Tom Hanks is wonderful. But you just see Tom Hanks the whole time, and he's not a cranky old man.
And I think that's what stops you from, really hating him, because he's going to turn into Tom Hanks here.
Right.
Right? I also wonder, do you think he took this role so his son could get the role? Because his son plays him in the flashback.
Okay, I couldn't tell, and in the credits there was a someone Hanks.
Yeah,
and
Truman Hanks.
I meant to look it up, and I didn't know. I knew he had Chet, and I knew he obviously had
Colin
Hanks, who Colin Hanks is the one that looks just like him.
Yeah.
I know he's older now, so that's probably why they didn't want to do it. But I mean, if you want a young Tom Hanks,
right,
Colin Hanks looks just like his dad, like the facial features and everything. You could see it
but I think this kid did though too. If he was a little thinner, I think he'd look. He's not fat. I'm not. But it's like, as somebody who grew up watching Tom Hanks, right? Sure. I've been a Tom Hanks fan since Bosom Buddies in real time. And so he's got the eyes and the mouth.
Yeah, you can see it for sure. I just when Colin Hanks was in more movies and you would see him, you'd be like, oh my God, that guy is young Tom Hanks. It just something about him. But I get what you're saying. I could see it, and you wonder. And I had never seen this kid before, Truman Hanks.
I mean, he doesn't. You can't. He's not even clickable on Wikipedia.
So that's why That's why it was such a surprise to me, because I'm like, Colin Hanks clearly from his acting career. Chet Hanks because TMZ.
Yeah, because he's
crazy. Yeah, I mean, he's out there for sure. And I've never heard of this kid. But when I saw the flashbacks, I'm like, oh well, maybe that's the one that I saw in the credits. And obviously should have looked it up and meant to, but it was a little bit of a crazy weekend. That was the problem. Was I love Tom Hanks. I think he's a great actor. But him playing cranky, you just didn't hear it in his voice. He would have these moments where he would put on the grump voice, which he was trying to do, grizzled Gran Torino, Clint Eastwood. But then he would have the high-pitched voice. You would keep hearing the Tom Hanks and it's that's a fake voice. I didn't believe he was a cranky old man. I just didn't.
Yeah, his heart never really fully felt into the mean part of the role.
Yeah, so you know who would have been great in this role? Stellan Skarsgård.
I know the name. But...
You know him from a ton of things. He was just the bad guy in Dune, the big fat guy. They put him in he's the big fat guy in Dune.
Okay.
He's the scientist in Thor that helps Natalie Portman.
Okay. But at the same time, they wanted a name. So he's a huge.
He's in the Star Wars.
But nobody's let's go see the new Stellan Skarsgård movie.
But he's
those words have never been said until this very moment.
Okay, so I get it. We're not talking about business, but that's what I prefaced with, not from a business standpoint, but he would play a great cranky old man that could be lovable in the end. Another one, you've just seen the Banshees of Inisherin. Brendan Gleeson would play another. I mean, he's a crank in that movie, but he can also play lovable and funny.
But again, I think if you gotta bring somebody that's got a marquee name.
But are we talking about making the movie or I get the business standpoint, but I'm just casting from pretend businesses aside, butts and seats aside. I'm just saying, who would play a good cranky old man that could be redeemable in the end? And I'm thinking of those two actors. They could have done it. Tom Hanks is the actor with a heart of gold. He's just America's dad. He's lovable. He's a great actor. He can kind of disappear. I mean, you always see him as Tom Hanks, but when he plays Sully, he does a good job slipping into that.
Yeah.
But playing cranky old man, as much as I love Tom Hanks, I just couldn't believe it. There was no truth in that role, and it made me just...
You know who who I think would have done a really good version of this.
Who's that?
That I think could actually, like, he could also get the movie funded.
Sure.
Billy Bob Thornton.
Billy Bob Thornton, yeah.
Like I could see that working.
Okay, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, he's a really good actor and a name that, I mean, may not be as big of a name now. I mean, I haven't seen him as much now, but he is still a name.
I think he just had that TV show that ran for a couple seasons.
Okay.
I think,
Sling Blade, the show.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, yeah, is he
It's killer.
Is he as bankable as Tom Hanks? Well, of course not. There are a few actors who are, right? But I think that's at least a name.
Yeah.
That could have worked.
I know Stellan Skarsgård isn't above the marquee all the time, but that he is a very dependable, very hardworking actor. Like, he's in a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think you're giving Stellan Skarsgård as much credit as. Plus, he sires these models of children. I don't know how he does it. Naked fighting on a volcano guy, like, that's his son.
Right.
Like, I don't know how this guy just pumps out the actor factory. He's got 3 or 4 of these sons. It's just like, what on earth? I mean, I think he's like, the mom is a model or something,
Yeah.
Like, it's just
clearly
the
that's coming
genetics
from somewhere.
Those Swedish genetics, or whatever. He has these like 6.5-foot blonde, blue-eyed kids.
Yeah.
But the guy is a brilliant actor, and I think he is someone who plays, like, in those Thor movies. There's a mainstream, people would know him from that as Dr. Selvig, I think is his name, and he's very likable in those movies and friendly with Natalie Portman's character and, like, the mentor type character, and he pops up in the Avengers movies or whatever. Sometimes he Skypes in or whatever. He's around the universe. So people would know him from that, but he has a gravitas to him.
I'm not questioning his capability. I just, like I said, from a business standpoint, like...
And he's Swedish, too, so it could have been like, oh, here's an actor that we know in American films, and he's a popular in Hollywood. They could have still
called him Ove.
Exactly. He would have, to me, embodied that. So that was my biggest complaint with the movie. Aside from that, I think it's a little Hallmarkish.
Oh, very much so.
The music cues.
Yeah.
Where I'm like...
My wife, who was, like, ugly crying through about 70% of this movie, she's like... It's all the saddest parts of The Notebook.
My next line was, the music cues were all right out of a Nicholas Sparks movie.
Yeah.
And it's like, this isn't a Nicholas Sparks movie. It tonally...
No, because it's pro-transgender.
Is he
I think I'm pretty sure he's on the right of the spectrum.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was another thing that threw me off, was throughout this film, you would get these music cues that were like, you're expecting Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams to be making out or something. And I'm just like, it's just old, sad Tom Hanks. Like, I'm like, it just, the cues were in a much younger, much more, I mean, I know there's a romantic flashback element to this movie, but tonally, the music felt off from what type of movie this was. So I thought there were really weird music cues. I'm not talking about the score is fine, but the songs, like the original songs. And there was one by, who was the song they kept playing? Bush? No,
Kate Bush?
Was it Kate Bush?
I don't know.
See if you can look up who. There was a song that played, and I'm just like, this doesn't fit the movie. I don't know. It felt Hallmarkish. It felt like that kind of manufactured, pulling on the heartstrings, to where I just didn't feel it. It wasn't working for me in a way that, like, I like those type of movies, like movies that have that romantic. A movie that's very similar with flashbacks, if you remember Big Fish, directed by Tim Burton.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite Tim Burton movies. And the movie is about the dad. It's narrated by Ewan McGregor. He plays the young dad, and he talks about falling in love, and he's telling these tall tales and all this stuff. They have an estranged relationship, and the dad's basically dying. And he's talking about his romance and falling in love with the wife and all this stuff. And that's like a romantic flashback about the older guy looking back at his younger self and everything. And I don't know, like, that type of movie is a very similar story in the way that it's trying to get you to feel emotional, and the love story. And, so it's not like I'm against telling these type of movies or flashbacks about romances, but every time they went back, there was something that felt, it was just like dull. It was sterile. There was something that just didn't click for...
Yeah, the movie's got, like, visually a very kind of point and shoot feel to it. Like, it doesn't, I feel like it would have worked better if it went a little bit more art house and a little bit more grounded.
Yeah.
It's a very manipulative movie.
Yeah.
Which at the same time is a little unfair, because all movies are manipulative, right? Like, that's the whole point. Like, all movies are trying to make you feel a certain way, ergo they're going to manipulate you. But I felt like on this one you could really see the strings when they were pulling them. You know, an example of a movie that's manipulative, especially from an emotional standpoint, is super effective, and you never really see that the strings they're pulling, right? And this is a little unfair to use this as a reference point because it's like one of the greatest movies ever, but it also is an example of a movie that is clearly emotionally manipulative, but does it exceedingly well. It's a Wonderful Life, right?
Sure.
And kind of
and this movie is It's a Wonderful. I mean,
kind of.
when I was watching it, I was thinking this is a spiritual remake, or the story they're trying to tell. It's the same thing.
Right.
Look how you affect other people. I mean, this is It's a Wonderful Life.
Right.
It's the exact same moral play.
Right.
I'm going to kill myself, and instead of him being dead and seeing his life, I mean, Christmas Carol, right? It's the same. Instead of, they're showing it in a little different way, but he's seeing, oh, how many lives do I really affect? I can't kill myself. I mean, it's the same thing.
Right.
Right.
And so, that place, the movie's so good about, like, you never feel like it's pulling on your heartstrings, even while it's doing it. It's just a classic misdirection. And so this never feels like it's even attempting misdirection. Like, as soon as they showed the quarter, I was like, well, that's significant.
Of course.
There was nothing subtle about it.
No, it's as soon as he picks up that quarter out of the thing, I mean, it's sitting in a dish, that is going to come to play. They do plant a lot of stuff like that. There are some elements in this film. I mean, we should say, trigger warning, this is a movie about suicide. And suicide and suicide and suicide. So, I mean, like, and there are dark comedy elements to it because essentially, and again, if you're susceptible to anything around suicide, like, maybe tune out, because this is what the whole movie throughout it is. The man called Otto is trying to kill himself. Right. Like, I mean, he makes multiple suicide attempts throughout the film. And they do play it. The movie does have a good, like, at the heart, there is a message that is good. Right. But they do kind of play up these comedical moments of him. Their failed attempts at suicide. He keeps trying to kill himself, and we find out why, but he keeps trying to, and it keeps failing. The movie opens with him going to a store, like a Lowe's, Beaver Buddies or something. Yeah. Busy Beaver. Busy Beaver, yeah. And all the, is that guy one of the SNL, It's John Higgins. Isn't he one of the SNL new digital short guys? We always forget, don't delete. I can never remember what the hell. I love those guys. Yeah. I'm like, please don't destroy. Please don't destroy. He's one of those guys, right? Yeah, they're great, and I wish I could remember their name. I always forget, like, please don't destroy. I'm going to remember that now. So anyway, he goes to the store, and he's trying to buy rope, and he's cutting it himself, and you get right off the bat that he's a big grump, and he's like, what do you think? I'm going to cut myself and bleed all over your store? And Higgins is like, no. And he's like, well, then I don't need your help. So that right off the bat, you can tell he's antisocial. He's a big grump. And I'm like, but these days, like, that is what they're worried about, and someone would do that. Right. So, like, they got to help you. Like, even if you're a big grump, that's the point where you'd be like, sir, I have to do that. Like, we're liable if you, like, we don't think that, but even if I believe that you're capable, like you can't do that. Right. You can't take that risk anymore. So nowadays, they wouldn't even let him do that no matter what he says. But anyway, he's a big grump, and he goes to the checkout, and it's rope by the meter, and he has 5 feet. Rope by the yard, and he's got 5 feet. Sorry, I didn't remember what country we were in here. Yeah. so he's got 5 feet, and he's like, I want to pay for 5 feet, and he's like, it's by the and a couple of dark comedy elements at play here. So at first you don't really know what the rope is for, but he's arguing over it's 99 cents a yard, and he wants 5 feet, so he wants to save 30 cents. Yeah. So he's arguing about this. He gets the manager. It's the assistant manager is there, and she's young, and she's just a kid, and he's grumping about that. Whatever. So he tries to save his 30 cents. He goes home. We find out that rope is to hang himself. Right. He was arguing over 30 cents that he wanted to save before he ended his life. Well, he's also, like, very meticulous, right? Because he's an engineer. Yeah. I'm assuming he's supposed to be somewhere on the spectrum. That's how I took it. Yeah. I was going to ask. I mean, I don't know. They never say it. And I don't know about the book or whatnot, but he does appear to be on the spectrum. Yeah. That's the way that way Tom played it, I think. Yeah, but I noticed there's a trend in movies to have characters who appear to be on the spectrum without ever declaring that they're on the spectrum. That way they don't have to worry about getting picketed. Gotcha. But
but he's very meticulous because like he also calls and like turns off all of his utilities before he's about to kill himself, which is like
but I think to me, like, and especially since that's not a point, any kind of diagnosis or anything is not a point of the script, to me that's a comedy element. You know, like why do you care about 30 cents if you're going to kill yourself? Like, I get his background and that he's meticulous, but again, that stuff doesn't matter if you're dead.
Yeah.
And he has no next of kin. Nothing should matter. So like they plant these little things that are like dark comedy, and then he eventually tries to hang himself, jumping ahead a little bit. But when he does try to hang himself with the rope, it breaks, and he's just like, oh, they just don't make these hooks. They can't make a good eye hook like they used to. But when he falls, he sees a coupon for flowers and he clips it. And I laughed at that. And I'm like, that's, I mean, he just tried to kill himself and he landed and saw a coupon and clipped it.
Yeah. And the way this movie's made, I could never really get a bead on if that part is poorly written or if they're trying to tell us that he really never wanted to kill himself. Because we know that he's this really good engineer. He's great with fixing things, and it's like if this guy wants to construct a way to hang himself, he can do it, right? So
you're right. You think it would be a lot more efficient.
Is that a larger sign that he doesn't want to do it, or is it just it served the narrative? So you know what I mean? I could never.
He gets so close in all these attempts. Like these attempts are.
I mean, that's why it's dangerous to attempt suicide, because you might change your mind, but like you could still pull it off.
But I don't think until the turn of the character, I don't think he ever changes his mind. Like I know he has stuff to do, and because of his meticulous nature, he goes on with his day because he has stuff to do.
Right.
But to me, I feel like he really wanted to.
So, and then in that case, it makes me feel like it's a plot hole, because if this guy wants to kill himself by hanging, he can do it.
Yeah.
Right. Like he's smart enough. Like if I tried to hang myself, I would totally fail at it. Yeah. I can't even change the wipers on my car, right? But this guy knows how to do all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so I don't believe that he would fail.
Yeah. But so you have to know that going into this movie that while, I mean, this is a very similar to It's a Wonderful Life. The story we already touched upon is you have things to live for, even if you experience loss, even if you think you're not valuable. There are people that care about you. There are people that you can make a difference in their life.
Yeah.
You have reasons to live, even if you don't realize it. So there's a good moral at the core of this story, but there is a lot of him trying to commit suicide. So he tries to hang himself. He tries to go into his car and feed a hose through his window from his exhaust.
Tries to jump in front of a train.
He tries to
shoot himself.
Let a train hit him. Eventually, a shotgun that's loaded at his head it misfires, and he escapes it. And he keeps having visions. So what it goes back to is his wife. And so we find out, and this is all playing out of sequence, but if you're listening and you don't care about spoilers or you've seen the movie, then you know where this is going. But we keep having these little glimpses of his life with his wife. So they have a meet cute at a train station. We see a flash of a woman who drops her book, and then he chases her down, and he goes the wrong way on the train, but it's to give her book back, and he doesn't have a ticket. He's already having a hard time with life because he doesn't really have anything with his life. I mean, his dad and him don't have a very good relationship except for working on cars. He doesn't know what he wants to do with his life, so he joins the army. He has a heart problem. That's the other manipulative part that I know you're going to talk about. Which, I mean, as
soon as they said it, I was like, oh, his heart is too big. That's why he's... Yeah.
That's the twist. That's at the very end. And
they say it at the beginning because they say he has an enlarged heart.
Oh, I thought they just said like the medical term, but they don't like say.
No, they say enlarged, and
well, okay, because then I forgot that, and I thought it was just a medical condition. Because when they say at the end, I almost laughed, and I not that you're supposed to, but I'm like, this is ridiculous,
right?
And I mean, the character too. Credit, like the character does, because it's such a ridiculous sounding thing with how the character is. It's like such a cheesy. Oh no, he's a grump, not because his heart is too small. His heart is too big. It's because he loves too much. It's like and there's literally the character for 2 minutes straight. Yeah, laughs. So like
I did like that, like her reaction to finding that out. I was also like, as soon as they said he had an enlarged heart, I was just like, ugh.
But yeah, that's where they're going with this. Is like, oh, he cares too much. That woman. That the new neighbor that is at the hospital when they say his heart is too big. I thought it was Marisol.
Oh,
his wife is Sonia.
Wife is Sonia. That's right.
Mariana Treviño.
Yeah.
Best part of the movie. She's phenomenal.
Yeah,
She's
she was
wonderful. Wonderful actress.
Yeah.
She's so good in this movie, so likable, so charismatic, going toe-to-toe. I mean, not only with an actor the caliber of Tom Hanks,
Yeah.
who's a great actor, as we've said, and has
For sure.
so many great roles. I mean, she goes toe-to-toe with him, and she puts this grump, the character, in his place, and it feels organic. She feels like someone who's lovable but doesn't put up with crap, right?
Right.
She's a very caring, very lovable person, very nice.
The thing I would have liked to have seen with her character is some indication as to why they cared about this dude, because they instantly were like wanting to help him.
Good people. I just she and her husband took me as just.
But you could be good people and just be like, well, if that guy wants to be left alone, I'm going to leave him alone. Like I'm not saying you got to be mean to him, but I was just surprised. Like they were making such a concerted effort to become a part of his life.
Yeah, the way that I read that was, I mean, and this is a thing that we've gotten further and further from in society today. I think there was a time, I mean, and you probably remember it more than me even, but there was a time when you were a good neighbor and you introduced yourself and you wanted to be friends and a neighbor would do anything for a neighbor, and that's just the way that it was. And so this family, it's a mom and a dad and 2 daughters, move in, and immediately the dad is a doof and just kind of a goofball, a lovable goofball. And
well, he's like a modern man, right? Like he doesn't know how to fix anything.
Yeah.
But he's IT, so he knows computers. He knows things. He's not dumb.
Sure.
But he's not going to, like when their dishwasher's not working, he's not going to know how to fix that.
Right.
Like,
That's good point. So, but he's a good guy, right? He's just a little bit goofy and doesn't know how to do those things. He's trying to back up a U-Haul trailer from their move, and he doesn't know, the way that you have to turn and how the trailer's going to adjust. So he keeps backing it up onto.
I wouldn't know.
Right.
I would have no way. I wouldn't have I would not even have attempted that. And so
you don't play enough video games. If you play video games.
But like Tom Hanks' character is like, well, how do you not know this? This is something everyone should know by the time you're 40.
And he gets in the car and he's like, automatic. That's not a car.
Yeah.
Right. So like, he's very old school, very engineer, like you said, and he knows angles and how to do all this stuff.
I'm surprised because he drove a Chevy Cruze. I'm like, do they even make those with a stick? It's so hard to find a stick shift anymore.
It is. They hardly make any. It's very hard. And now it used to be an upcharge for automatic. And now that automatic is so standard now, sometimes you have to pay more to get a standard transmission.
And it used to be.
Is yours a stick?
Oh no,
okay.
I don't know how to drive a stick.
Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha.
And it used to be that sticks were more fuel efficient.
Yeah, sure.
And
you could shift at all the RPMs. So
right, and that's not true anymore because the computers are better than you.
Absolutely.
And so
they're robots. Like you can't, no matter how good you think you are, like Tom Hanks may think he's a pro, but there's no way
he's not going to be better than that computer, which is why, because like you're hard pressed to even find sports cars that are stick shifts anymore.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, it is very hard, especially on high end cars. Like you'd think if you're spending $90,000 on a new Corvette, you want a stick shift because it's like it's a sporty, fun car, but it's like hardly any of them are made. They all have the paddle shifters, like so you can pretend you can shift when you want, but you're not actually doing
it. It's just role playing. You can make fun of D&D nerds all you want while you drive your Vet, but you're just role playing.
Yeah, it is. It really, and like I always said, like there's no, if I'm getting a sport car like that, like a high end, I'm not getting an automatic. Like that's the fun of it. My Mustang was a stick shift because that's like I wanted. I
never learned how to drive a stick shift,
gotcha.
So like I wouldn't want one.
Yeah, the dad is trying to back this thing in, and Otto is just like, this is ridiculous. Get out of the car, and he
needs autopilot.
Exactly. See. And so he pulls forward, he backs it in perfectly and parallel parks with the trailer and everything. So the family wants to thank him. He sees this all from out his window as he's trying to hang himself, by the way. And then he goes out and helps him, goes back in, and basically goes back to hang himself.
Right.
And then they come over with food. And it's that kind of neighborly, we just moved into the neighborhood and, you helped us, so here's some food that we made. And they're just very much your prototypical, it's a thing that's gone by the wayside now, but you're good, friendly neighbors. And I think they were good people, and they were clearly the people that Otto needed in his life. And I think the thing to take away from this movie is that you never know what someone's going through, and you should always be friendly and always help when you can, because that little difference may change someone's life. And it may not have been that exact indirect thing because it was just a little thing. Like he helped them and they brought him food, and that didn't necessarily change his trajectory. But then when he helped someone else and he helped someone else and people helped him, I mean, it just kept going. And eventually it got Otto to a point where he no longer wanted to kill himself and he realized he had something to live for. So you never know what difference you'll make in someone's life. And I think that these were just the good people that he needed. And some people are like that, you know, and I know that we don't see it as often. And now I totally get where you'd be like, well, why are they like this? And they never really explain. But it's like, you know what? There used to be a time when people were just good people and it didn't seem like a fictional event, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know any of my neighbors' names.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's what I mean. You just don't do that anymore, right? And you just it's not the same thing where it used to be. I mean, even when I was growing up, like I know the neighbors' names were at my grandma's house. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I do know one very good neighbor and one neighbor that actually went out and got some stuff for me while I was sick over the weekend. So Tiffany, even though you don't listen, but like, I know her, she's a wonderful neighbor, but like the other ones I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, and it is very rare now to know your neighbors. And that's the thing. So this seems to be from like an older time and an older way of thinking, but like, there's no reason why it shouldn't be like this.
Yeah.
We're too busy. We're too wrapped up in ourselves. No one has time for each other. And people, when there's a problem, as evidenced later in this movie, when someone's on the train tracks, they pull out their phone and film.
Yeah.
Instead of jumping down. And of course it's dangerous, but I mean, instead of helping the person, they film it.
Right.
And that's the whole thing. And that's the commentary of this movie is why aren't people helping each other instead of filming it or walking by or saying, oh, the next person will help, or because everyone thinks that way. Well, someone else will help, someone else will help. And so anyway, it's a very nice example of how people can be to one another. This couple, they're a very nice couple. I like both them, and the daughters were good. I like this dynamic.
Yeah, I mean this movie is elevated by the actors. Like even though we're kind of bagging on this movie, at the end of the day, I would not call this a bad movie. It's
not a bad movie.
It's also I don't know that this is really a movie intended for us. This is more a movie that your parents or grandparents are going to go see.
That's what I was going to say.
And they're going to love it.
The casting of Tom Hanks and with I don't know if you'd say cheesy, but the music to me, the music cues were cheesy to me. Yeah. I was thinking about it and I'm like, this is a Frontenac grandparents movie for people who are local. Like this is the art house movie that the older crowd goes to and they're going to love it. And it's a cute movie. I left it feeling like
Tom Hanks in the role gets it out of the art house ghetto.
Right.
If it's your Stellan Skarsgård blockbuster, then it's Frontenac and that's it.
Right.
If this stars him, it's Best Exotic Marigold Hotel.
Right. And so I get it. And that's why from the business perspective, I get casting Tom Hanks just for I wish, and he's a producer on this movie. He and his wife are, and I just wish they would have got someone else to do it. But I get it. You know, they're producers and you said it's making money. So
it's made like $43 million. And now it's got a budget of 50, but
wow. It's kind of surprising to me for
it doesn't seem like it needs a $50 million budget, but I know that
I guess his son's got a good start.
Yeah, but all the industry stuff I've been reading is just about how they've been surprised at how well it's doing, and it just keeps chugging along. Like it, because movies that target an older demo tends to go to the box office more slowly,
right?
Literally and figuratively.
Right.
So like movies that target an older demo normally have a longer shelf life because they don't all just rush out week one like Avengers, right? Like they'll see it slowly over time, especially as they get word of mouth that it was a good movie.
Yeah.
And so and the thing is that there aren't a lot of movies like this. And so when you get one, people that want movies like this aren't used to going to the theaters because they don't get movies like this very often. So when they do, if it's well done or well enough done, like it can do decent business, but it's going to be a slow jog to get there.
Yeah.
But it's at 43. It's been in theaters for about a month. It opened limited release on December 30th, and then I think wide the next week. But it's just been kind of slowly getting there. It kind of reminds me of there was that period for a while where January always had your kind of your pro-military movie.
Oh, sure.
Right?
American Sniper.
American Sniper. You had
The Lone Survivor.
Mm-hmm. I think that's about the time that like 13 Days came out. But they just kind of kept dropping these military movies in January.
Which was a good Michael Bay movie. I'd rather see Michael Bay make more grounded movies like that than the Transformers ones, right? Because I watched the movie and I'm like, that's actually a really well-made film.
Yeah. But this seems to be kind of maybe filling that role.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, definitely. I could see it. So this was directed by Marc Forster, who has directed a lot of big movies, and some highly acclaimed ones. Monsters Ball, Finding Neverland, Stranger Than Fiction, that one with Will Ferrell. He directed Quantum of Solace, the Bond movie. World War Z, which, we know that was kind of a crazy movie. Christopher Robin, the one with Ewan McGregor.
Yeah.
So he's directed a lot of good stuff.
I liked World War Z.
Yeah, I mean, it had a messy production.
It had a very
sure.
troubled production, and I think that it's interesting in that they did all those reshoots, and the back half of that movie gets smaller.
Yeah.
But I thought it got better.
Yeah. Pepsi machine.
Yeah.
Front and center with the reshoots.
That's how they paid for it.
I know, that Pepsi machine in the hospital. I just always think about it. It's so hard not to. It's like the Bud Light truck in Transformers 4. I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
It crashes and spills on the ground, and Mark Wahlberg picks one up and turns to the camera and drinks a Bud Light.
IHOP and Man of Steel.
Yeah, exactly. They just kind of messed that movie up, though, with that whole through line with the Josh. What's the pilot, Jack from Lost with Matthew Fox?
Yeah, they completely cut his role.
I mean, he's terrible in the book and what he was trying to do, but by cutting that out, it's a big part of the plot.
Yeah.
And, with him.
They also, I think, failed in that movie by changing the narrative structure. Part of what made World War Z so cool was this documentary feel it had to it, the book.
Right.
The book. And so it's by moving away from that to just tell a zombie story, it made the scope smaller. World War Z is essentially based as a riff on a book by Studs Terkel called The Good War.
Okay.
And The Good War, this is going to sound like an eat your vegetables thing, but cannot recommend this book highly enough. Okay. It is riveting. It's an oral history of World War II. He interviews people who actually lived through World War II. And so, I mean, he'll interview soldiers. He interviews the girls that stayed at home. And then he'll interview the hookers in France.
Right. Which is great to get the perspective from so many different people. I love that. I always think about that, how I'm surprised there aren't more documentaries or interviews about things that aren't with just the people directly involved with things, but on the peripheral, how are people interpreting things and seeing things?
And I think he also talks to, it's been 25 years since I read the book, but I think he also talks to generals and things like that. But
a good mix of people,
He talked when they dropped the bomb on Hiroshima, he talks to people that lived through that and the horror of it. But then he also talks to the people who were on a boat getting ready to go launch a land invasion in Japan they were just like, oh, thank God.
Right.
They were like, there was no way we were going to win that.
Wow.
And so it's fascinating.
Gotcha.
It's a World War Z, if you've never read the book, is similar. It's like it has these characters that you see, but it's all just their first person account of World War Z.
Yeah.
And it toggles back and forth between them throughout the book and crafts this whole story.
Well,
but
it
makes the story feel epic.
Yeah, that's really smart that it's World War Z and it's based on a book about World War II.
Right.
So that's written by Max Brooks, Mel Brooks' son, who is an author that has written a lot of books. We actually mentioned it last week on the show, but he's written a lot of books. He's a very successful author, and I don't think a lot of people even connect it. It's not like pure nepotism where people are like, oh, that's Mel Brooks' son. A lot of people have no idea that Max Brooks is his son and is an author. They don't really connect the two, and I don't think he uses that connection. It's just not a very, unless you are deep in the know, and if you love Mel Brooks, you're going to know he has a son and whatever. But the general audiences, I don't think connect the two of them, but he's a successful author.
But he does use it to some degree, I have to assume, because in the audio book for World War Z, one of the main characters is, because the audio book is really cool because they get different actors to play these roles, right? So as they're toggling back and forth, so you hear the voices pop back up. But one of the actors is Carl Reiner.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Sure. I mean, he sure uses his connections, but he
at
doesn't
that
seem
point,
milked.
he had made it.
Yeah, exactly. And coming up, I didn't know he was an author, and I think until World War Z came out and everything, and I'm just like, wow, that's cool that he doesn't really milk that as much. He seems to have come to it on a good amount of talent.
Yeah.
He is talented, and I'm sure he got his foot in the door. But yeah, it's something that not a lot of people know. But check that book out, and I thought the movie was good. It's a shame that it was such a mess and they couldn't continue with it because I wanted them to keep going for sure. But anyway, so this is him directing that, and I think coming off of Christopher Robin, he's working on smaller projects, doing Bond and World War Z, and then, now back to Christopher Robin. And
well,
this
that
movie.
Was like the worst of the Daniel Craig Bond movies.
Agreed.
It also happened during the writer's strike. So
Yeah.
it's not entirely his fault.
And again, that's not a horrible movie, but if you're talking about and compared to I didn't think it was bad, but it wasn't the best for sure. But anyway, he's really good with smaller stuff, and again, this is a very competent movie, so it's fine. I just think that you're right. We're not the audience. I definitely think the older audience going to it that doesn't mind some of the cheesiness and stuff. But anyway, back to the film. So basically, again, this is very much where he keeps trying to kill himself, and he keeps failing. He keeps getting interrupted, but he's interrupted by people that need his help.
Yeah,
and there's other neighbors that we don't know why yet. We eventually find out why, but he's not as close to a lot of his neighbors, and they don't bother him like they used to because of something that happens in his past. One of these sets of neighbors that he and the wife were really close friends with, he and Sonia were friends with. One of them has, what does the husband have?
Do they say he just has some form of dementia, but I don't know that they ever.
Yeah, he doesn't. He's like staring off in the distance. He doesn't move. He doesn't talk. The wife says
he had a stroke, according to Wikipedia.
He's in there, but he doesn't interact or anything. So basically, and the wife, we find out, has Parkinson's. Yeah. So we don't find out right away, but their son, they're estranged from, but the son had coerced the wife, we find out, into giving him power of attorney, and he wants to put the dad in a home.
Yeah, he wants to move the dad to assisted living facility and then sell the house because real estate developers want this land.
Yeah, so and throughout the whole movie, you see these Mike Birbiglia. I like Mike Birbiglia. Yeah. He's funny. He plays. And
he always ends up playing weasels in movies.
He's great. And he's such a nice guy, and he's so funny. But he does play these characters, and he's really good at it.
He played a character just like this in Orange is the New Black.
Oh, did he? Okay, I didn't watch that. That's funny. He's been in a couple of good. He's directed a couple of movies that are pretty good. What was Sleepwalk with Me?
Sleepwalk with Me. Yeah.
What was the other one he did?
It was about an improv team or actors.
Okay.
I don't remember.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, Mike Birbiglia plays the Weasley real estate guy. He's always driving through the neighborhood, and Otto is like, you can't drive through this street without a permit, and he's a jerk, and he's throwing cigarette butts on the ground, and Otto's very meticulous picking those up and sorting the recycling and everything. But they're trying to come in here and clear out all these places and whatever, build huge condos. And so that's going on, and he's been estranged from this couple, and by the end of the movie find out about her Parkinson's, and he's like, oh, she would have told me about this.
This was a very odd reveal for me.
Really? Why is that?
Because if a movie doesn't tell me otherwise, I assume it's taking place in the year that I'm watching it.
Oh, sure.
And so when they reveal that she has Parkinson's, and he's like, no, Sonia, they were like, oh, they told your wife. And he's like, no, Sonia would have told me like a year ago. No, and I was like, wait, a year ago? But the wife died in 2018. So clearly this movie's taking place in 2019. Yeah,
because we see the gravestone.
It says 2018. And so I just...
Must have been filmed before the pandemic.
No, they started filming it in 2022. They wrapped shooting on this in May of last year. I looked it up.
Why did they set it a few years ago?
And then tell you.
Yeah,
because I spent... Because when they said, we told your wife this, and I was like, oh, so she's had it for like, 4 years at least. And then they were like, well, no, this was just last year. Yeah. And then I was like, and then I thought, like, there's going to be some sort of big switcheroo with, like, how the timing of this film is structured. And instead, it's just, no, this just happens to be taking place 3 years ago. But they've never, if they did anything to allude to that.
Okay, yeah, no, I didn't even realize that. And that's funny. I wasn't paying so much attention to the gravestones and all that. I mean, I saw the dates, but it never even clicked.
But yeah, and then, because then at the end, a spoiler, when Otto dies, like his gravestone says 22, like October 17th, 2022. So he lived. So he lived in like another 3 years.
Oh, maybe that's why they did it, because once they all become friends, they have some more time together.
Then put 2025.
Yeah.
Like,
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't really understand that.
and I don't know if it's because with the way the timing worked, then it's like if they'd have backdated all the times and it would have all been during the middle of COVID, and then what does that mean? I don't know. But it was just like the timing of that.
That's
I
true.
got very
That
confused
is true,
by.
though. So there is a couple of years whenever, if you know a movie takes place in 2020 through 2022, you have to deal with COVID.
Right.
So I can understand them setting this around COVID so that no one has to wear masks. It'd be very unbelievable to
For
not
sure.
address it.
But then I'm like, but then just give us a heads up that it's 2019 or something.
Sure.
You know, or
Put
some
it on
sort
the
of
screen or
visual
something.
clue so I know.
More than the gravestone.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, because when, like I said, if you don't tell me otherwise, I assume the movie's taking place in the year that we're
usually
watching.
do, yeah. If there's no, no, that's a good point. I bet it just has to do with COVID, and I mean, I gotta give them a little slack. Like, it's just the COVID stuff's messy. It's it's very.
My first thought was the same as yours. I'm like, oh, has this been sitting on the shelf?
I just figured it.
Yeah.
I figured it was, but okay. So anyway, so he ends up helping those neighbors, and again, we're jumping around, but like these are the different people he helps. So once he starts helping people and through all the failed suicide attempts, he ends up helping them with the real estate people. He helps someone, like you said, when someone falls on the train track. So he keeps getting closer and closer. Like his suicide attempts become more serious, it would seem. So he tries to hang himself in the Hook Falls. He tries to he goes over to the couple that we're talking about now, and he's like, I'll help you with your heat if you give me my hose back that you borrowed a long time ago.
Yeah.
And then he kind of has this, like, the husband can't talk, but he's like kind of telling him like, he's grumping with the friend and whatever. And then the guy actually holds onto the hose. Like, he doesn't move or do anything, but he's so mad at Otto, he like holds onto the hose. Which
I took it as he knew what he was doing. He was trying to stop him.
No, I know. Like, he
okay.
doesn't do anything, but then he's so mad with Otto and what Otto says, he actually holds the hose, which is another like kind of comedic element. But he gets the hose back, and he wants the hose because he's going to run his car in the garage and pipe the exhaust into his car.
Yeah.
So then that is stopped, though, because Marisol comes and starts banging on the garage door, and he's like, oh, what? And the husband who borrowed his ladder, the husband's always borrowing tools because it's that stereotypical, like, he doesn't know anything. He doesn't have the tools. You know, he wants an Alvin wrench, and he says, like, the husband doesn't know a Allen wrench from a chipmunk. And
Because he calls it an Alvin wrench.
An Alvin wrench, yeah. And so he's borrowing his ladder, and then he's borrowing a ladder to open a window. He falls off the ladder. Marisol's like, you need to drive me to the hospital. And Otto's such a grump where he's just like, I can't do that, whatever. And she's like, Otto, stop. Listen to me. My husband is in the hospital or in an ambulance, probably dying. I don't know how to drive. Will you drive me? Yes. And she's like, okay, I'm going to go get the kids. And he's like, the kids? Like, he's just put out by everything.
Yeah.
And she's like, Otto. So anyway, so she, so that attempt is foiled. He goes to the hospital. These kids kind of bring out something in him. And, obviously, again, it's very manipulative in that way. You can see children are a point of stress. There's something surrounding children in his life. Come to find out, one of the flashbacks shows us that the two, Otto and Sonia, are on a trip. They're vacationing but while she's 6 months pregnant or something. Yeah. And they want to take one big last trip. They go to Niagara Falls. On the way back, they're in a bus. Otto goes to use the restroom. He walks back there, and we see the bus gets in a crash, and he's falling, tumbling around in the bathroom. He gets out, and there's luggage everywhere, and the bus is a mess, and people are all laying around, and come to find out the wife was paralyzed. Yeah, she's severely injured. We don't know if she's going to make it at this point or not, but when we're in the hospital, we find out she does, but she's paralyzed and she lost the baby. So
and instantly lost all of the baby weight.
That's true.
I get that, just wanted to send the signal that she lost the baby, but she looked like
right, they didn't.
She had never been pregnant.
They didn't really
all.
address it. Yeah. So we find out he's got this crib that he made, and it's that they're pulling on your heartstrings in the flashback. They made this room, and he made this crib and everything, and so it's in his house, and it's all wrapped up, and he's kept it all this year. So children, obviously, it's very meaningful to him, and is a huge part of why he is the way he is because he lost this child, and so the children, when he's at the hospital with this family, start to bring out some life in him. He's reading to them, and he's grumping, but like he can't be grumpy around them. He starts to do voices, and it's the first time you really see Otto start to act friendly in this way. And there's this clown, the hospital clown, volunteer clown, and as soon as he says, I need to borrow a coin, I'm like, oh God, this can't be good. You know how important this coin is to Otto, and so he says, I need this back. So the clown borrows the coin, and it disappears, and he pulls a coin out of his ear, gives it to Otto, and then Otto looks at it, and this is supposed to be a 1964 quarter that's still made out of silver
that his wife had given him when they first met.
It's
it's very sentimental.
On the train, she pays for his ticket because he doesn't have enough money because he's a poor kid that didn't get into the army, doesn't have a job, and so she says, keep the change from the ticket, and it's
filthy animal.
Yeah, that's exactly. And so he keeps his quarter with him. She goes, oh, it's lucky, and so he has kept it with him every day. He leaves the house, he brings it with him. So anyway, he gets into a fight with the clown, and they're all like Grandpa Otto hit the clown.
Yeah, he punched the clown. Yeah.
And anyway, it doesn't get arrested or anything, but he's in trouble for it. And it's this comedic moment. He gets his coin back. But it starts to bring out this thing in Otto. And so more and more life starts to come into Otto. This is also very similar to me. It's not the same story at all, but there's a movie called A Single Man with Colin Firth. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
I love this movie. It's directed by Tom Ford, the fashion designer. It's an amazing movie. Director of Nocturnal Animals, who I know.
So he's batting 500.
I know. I was so excited for that movie because I love A Single Man. I mean, it is a beautiful film.
I've heard that about you.
Oh, yeah. Only the single ones, though.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to. Yeah. So it's a phenomenal film. See it. But this is a man, Colin Firth, who has lost the love of his life in a car accident and wants to kill himself. Okay, wow, this is more familiar than I actually thought. And maybe that's another reason. I've seen this movie, and I've seen it so much better.
Right.
That is one of my favorite movies, and it was my favorite movie of, I think, 2008 or 2009 when it came out. So I've seen this movie, and so beautifully done. That movie is a piece of art. It is beautiful. He takes the color out of it, and this man who has lost love of his life, he's contemplating killing himself, and more people come into his life, and color starts to come into the film, and it's beautiful. And Julianne Moore plays a friend, and she's he's a part of her life, and he starts to find reasons to live again. So again, it's a very similar storytelling dynamic, and go watch that movie. That's my video recovery. Instead of this one, go watch that. But anyway, so you've seen this, and so he starts to have people come into his life, and he's helping them, right? He's helping the husband, he's helping this couple, and he's finding reasons to live. And we find out the backstory with the wife. And now this family with the two daughters, we have to mention Marisol's also pregnant, and she's going to have another child. And so he's finding reasons to stick around. Does he help any? The kid. Malcolm. So we find out that the wife, Sonia, was a teacher, and she was this great person who you can tell gave meaning to Otto's life, because Otto was lost before he found her, and really gave him something to live for and gave him meaning into his life. And she just kept on helping people, became a teacher. And this kid, Malcolm, who leaves his bike, in the pathway or whatever, there's a bike rack, but Malcolm stops to deliver something. What is he delivering? I can't remember.
It's like ad circulars for I think like a local restaurant.
Oh, is that what Otto's throwing away bundles of them? He's picking them up. Okay. Or recycling. Sorry. I would never say Otto was throwing away a paper product.
That's why if it was Clint Eastwood, he would not have been recycling.
Exactly.
They would have removed that.
Yeah.
And the trans kid from the screenplay.
So Malcolm has stopped. He's putting the flash flyers on the door or whatever, and parked his bike on the side, and Otto takes it and is going to put it in the bike rack, and Malcolm's like, hey, that's my bike, give it back. And he's like, it doesn't belong there. And he's very grumpy, get out of here or whatever. And later on in the film, we find out that Malcolm is trans and has had a hard time with his family, as you would expect, as a lot of people experience. And Otto starts to help him with things like fixes his bike. He has a falling out with his dad, Malcolm does. And so,
which I thought was a little hard to believe that wouldn't have happened sooner
already, right?
Like, it's because he's clearly very deep into his transition process. So I think the dad would have already, if the dad was going to kick him out, I feel like that would have already occurred.
Yeah, I mean, I took this as Malcolm was having a lot of trouble, and maybe it had happened, and then somehow he was able to go, like, it was on the rocks, and I think another event happened where they got in an argument, and the dad said, "Get out of my house." Right? Like, it didn't seem like things were great at all for Malcolm before this point, and I think it was just another event. But at this time, maybe one of many times, Malcolm was kicked out of the house and had nowhere to stay. And so since Otto had shown him kindness and helped with the bike, he comes by, and this is another interruption. At this point, Otto is trying to kill himself with the shotgun.
Yeah.
So we went to the car. He hung himself. In between here are train tracks. He's contemplating jumping in front of a train before he can kill himself with the train. An old man stumbles into the train tracks.
He has a heart attack.
Oh, he has a heart
falls
attack.
On the track. Yeah.
And then Otto pulls him out and saves him. And this is where you get the social media stuff where people are filming it, and you get the social media journalist who Otto becomes somewhat of a local hero, but doesn't stop to like obviously take any credit or anything. But Otto, after he pulls the old man out, stands and just looks at the train and is about to kill himself. But Otto, every time he's going to kill himself, sees these flashbacks to things the wife says. And the wife says in this part, he remembers like, give me your hand, and there's a guy on the side of the train saying, give me your hand, and he pulls Otto out at the last second before he can get hit by the track, and is like, what the heck are you doing? And Otto gets out of there and books it. So there's that moment where he tries to kill himself and is saved by that. And then this time he's got the shotgun and he's got tarp all around his house because, again, he's still trying to like preserve his home and all that, even though it has no meaning, no one to pass it to or whatnot. But he's about to kill himself, and Malcolm comes to the door and says, hey, I had nowhere else to go. Me and my dad had this falling out. Can you help me? And he finds kindness and says, okay, you can go into Sonia's study. She had a couch in there or whatever. So he keeps helping these people. And then I think it comes to be where the old neighbors are about to get kicked out. But there's a point where we get the flashback with the child with Sonia, and they lose their child, and the neighbor's going to get kicked out, and something clicks where he finally decides, because he talks to Marisol. Oh, he has a breakdown in the street, right?
He like collapses in the street, has some sort of heart episode.
Yeah. It's with Mike Birbiglia, right? He's talking to the...
he like runs him out. Yeah, because,
he has information on all of them.
Yeah, somehow this company, the real estate company, is getting into people's medical records and using them against them because they know that he's got this heart condition, and they know that
the old couple,
because that's when they figure out when the real estate guy knows that the old the woman has Parkinson. He's like, how he didn't know that, and he's like, wait, how do you know that and I don't?
Yeah, no one else knew that.
And that's where we have the time confusion for me. And then I think immediately following that, he has a heart attack in the street or some sort of heart episode, and then he goes in the hospital, and Marisol finds out about the enlarged heart, and then
that is all before the social media and the old he has the heart attack after he helps them, and they're on the news, and he's walking away. And he has the heart attack, and there's all that stuff. Like he saves their house first. So he goes into his house, and Marisol, he's so freaked out. He's having an episode, but he doesn't have the heart attack yet. But he's so freaked out, and the medical information, all that stuff. He closes himself, and Marisol's banging the door trying to come in. And this is what really freaks her out. And then when he learns that the old couple is going to lose their house, the goofy neighbor that's always jogging, Jimmy, comes by and tells him, and he finds out they're going to lose her.
Did you watch Mindhunter?
I didn't, but this guy looked familiar.
He's also in Umbrella Academy, but he's Ed Kemper in Mindhunter, one of the creepiest, scariest serial killers.
Okay, that's funny. He's such a goofball.
Yeah.
He reminds me of Danny McBride. Didn't he have kind of a weird Danny McBride? I was getting kind of
guess because I didn't see that because he's so... just genuinely nice, where Danny McBride's characters are always kind of douchey.
But he gave me a not Danny McBride vibe of this goofball character. Yeah. But he ends up telling Otto what's going on, and that's when he's like, why would I not know, whatever. And he's like, I'm going to stop this. I'm going to go help them. And so they basically use the social media lady to come in and expose the real estate company, so they have to back off. And then he has his heart attack. Exactly.
And then,
it seems like everything's good, and all the neighbors are together, and we love Otto, and he's great, and Otto's walking away because, again, he doesn't really care to take credit. And you start and he rescues a cat. He hates cats, and then he adopts this cat. So all these people, the animals, he's helping everyone. And at this point, he's helped all these people, but then he finally has his episode. And this is Chekhov's heart issue that we knew was going to come back and do something. And so he collapses in the street. He's in the hospital.
And that's when Marisol finds out.
Yeah.
And then...
I guess what I was trying to think of was before the whole falling out, when he's trying to help the old couple, he's disconnected his phone and everything. And so he goes to Marisol and says, can I borrow your phone? And Marisol finally is done putting up with his crap and is like, you scared me. You had this issue. I didn't know what was going on. You wouldn't let me into your house. no, you can't use my phone because you won't tell me what's going on. And he lays out the whole thing with the backstory with the wife and everything that they went through and the loss of the child. And he's like, I need to use your phone because I need to save whatever I can't remember their names, the couple. I need to save their house. And I really like that scene. This is the scene where I'm like, okay, I like her and I like what Tom Hanks was doing. I'm like, I was feeling invested in that scene. I wish more of the movie was believable, and I just really liked.
Yeah, it was, like you said, a little less Hallmark.
Yeah, I really liked that scene though. And she's like, okay, you can use the phone. He calls the social media person. He does all this stuff, saves the house. He ends up in the hospital. The doctor, he says, oh, Miss whatever, your uncle has a heart issue. Did he tell you much about it? No. She says, well, your uncle has this issue. You're next of kin, and his heart is too big. And that's where she has this laughing fit, and where it's like, I did too, because I'm like, that is so cheesy. It's so ridiculous.
It is. Yeah.
But she does it too, and like, it is so goofy. But she has that fit, and the doctor's like, what?
And after that, basically, he comes home, and everybody gets along.
She goes into labor at the hospital. And I liked the doctor's like, oh, I'm a heart surgeon or whatever. Like, I'm going to call the right people. But Otto pops up. And this is another part that bugged me throughout the movie. And I saw it here in the hospital. There's funny moments in this movie. And there's nothing wrong with a movie having levity. But tonally, the movie had this weird thing where I'm like, I liked the comedy, but it also took itself so seriously at parts.
And that's a difficult thing to pull off. It's like, because this movie very much reminds me of As Good as It Gets.
Yeah.
Or Terms of Endearment even, which is both James L. Brooks movies.
Balancing the dramatic and the comedy is a very hard thing to do.
Yeah.
I think Tim Burton does it very well in Big Fish. There are very funny moments in that movie, but very heartfelt moments. And that's the problem, is I felt that this director, Marc Forster, who has made good films, but I didn't think his balance of the dramatic and the comedic was on point. And so
there were
was
times
jarring.
where I was unsure if it was supposed to be funny.
Right? And it's like, and especially when you're dealing with such serious stuff, how do you, and it is a hard balancing act. I'm not saying it's easy to do, but if you're going to have a movie that's full of this character committing suicide, and then you kind of underplay it with these, there's always some kind of a moment that like underplays the seriousness, like with the coupon or the hook.
And I think that's where it would have been better if it had been more, it would have been easier for those moments to work if it was more grounded and a little less schmaltzy.
Exactly. And so and so the Hallmarkness kind of throws that off, and it had trouble finding its footing. But anyway, she has the baby. He's welcome to the family. They're all celebrating. He gifts them the crib that he made for his child that was never born.
Which seems like a bad idea.
Why is that?
Well, because I mean, you know how it is with baby stuff, right? Any of that old stuff is no longer up to safety standards.
Oh.
And considering that his wife was killed or paralyzed in a bus crash that hadn't been treated properly in a recall.
Yeah.
Like, I was just like, a 40-year-old crib? You think that's a good idea?
Got, what is it, like? It's made of asbestos and lead paint.
Right.
I mean, seriously, from back in the day. What was in the 60s or something?
Well, no, because he was Vietnam, so I'm assuming it was like probably early 70s by the time.
70s, okay. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much how it ends. He's accepted into, I mean, he's already throughout the movie been accepted into this family, but
he accepts the acceptance.
Exactly. I mean, he accepts the abuelo Otto, Grandpa Otto. He's part of their family. All the neighbors love him. You know, and
then he dies.
And then he dies, which apparently is a couple years later. So he's had like some time to...
It's October 17th, 2022, I think is what the tombstone said. So
2020 to 2022.
So he had like 3 years.
So,
because the wife died in 18.
Oh, 18.
And he said it'd been a year.
Right. I thought it was 19.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Right. So
and so he had roughly 3 years.
So he helped all the he's...
And of course he left a note behind.
Yes.
Okay,
so he did die of natural causes, right? Because he says, like, I didn't do anything stupid.
Yeah, because you see him writing the note like right when he gets out of the hospital. And then you see all the scenes of like over the next 3 years. But he left that note there knowing that they would find it whenever, like, because he didn't have a way to, so it's not a will. So, well, I guess he did have a will, but he's saying like, here's what you need to do to take care of my cat. Yeah. Here's what you got to do. Like, and he gives,
which was cute. Don't let your idiot husband near the Chevy.
Right. Yeah. He gives her the car.
Did he buy Malcolm a car? Or
so I took it as he gave Malcolm the Chevy Cruze, and then he went out and bought a big truck.
Okay. But Malcolm wanted a Volkswagen, right? Did he say sell it to get a Volkswagen?
He said I saved you from the Volkswagen.
Oh, I saved. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. I at this point, I don't know what I heard all that, but I
Yeah.
guess missed a little detail there. Okay. So yeah, gives Malcolm the old car, buys the big truck that he wanted, and then he eventually gifts the family the truck, or gifts the wife, Marisol, the truck, and
But says the husband can't drive it.
don't let him near it. And it's cute. Like that's funny.
And he basically leaves all his money to them.
Yeah, the house is yours. And,
Yeah.
and because they were renting when they moved in, they were just renting, and now they own this
And he
place.
was just like, but you just can't sell it to the real estate company.
Idiots. Yeah. So I mean, it's cute. It's a nice story. If you're triggered by the suicide stuff, like there's a lot of it.
There's a lot of it.
And they do play things for laughs that have to do with it, but I can see where their heart is, but that's a tricky thing, I think, nowadays when I'm watching. I'm like, because the trying to balance being sensitive around the issue, but with the points they're trying to make of don't do this, you have stuff to live for. But it's just weird this day and age. Like, I think it's a very hard juggling act. I don't think they could quite find the balancing act, but I do think their heart was in the right place. The moral of the story is a good one. It is like some of the other movies we've mentioned in the past. I mean, basically It's a Wonderful Life.
Right.
It's A Christmas Carol. You have things to live for. You have people to live for. No matter how much you think that people don't notice you or that you don't make a difference, you do. And look at the impact you can have on people's lives. Be kind to one another. The family is not who you're born into, but the family you make. It's all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's a schmaltzy, feel good type of movie.
It just felt kind of like after all that to then kill the character off anyway. So it felt a little. If nothing else, like say that make the tombstone say like 2029, like give him more than 3 years.
The way that I took that, and I totally agree, because why if you're going to keep him alive? But like the whole thing I took it of is like it's not your time to go, right? Like you're going to be with your wife. The whole, he's always saying like he believes that he's going to kill himself to be with the wife. She was his only reason to live. He's going to go be with her. He says it toward the end of the movie. I was going to go be with her when he finally admits it to Marisol, I think. So it wasn't his time yet. And it's to say like your time will come, you'll be with her soon. It's just you have things to do. You have people whose lives you can have a positive change on. The world isn't ready for you to leave yet, but you will soon. And so it was kind of a way to say like, here, get these few things done and wrap them up, and then it's your time to go. But I do agree, like I didn't really even need that, but I think they wanted to give you, since he believed that he was going to die and be with her, I think they like wanted to get him there before too long. I think that was like their hallmarky way of being like, well, look, he did all this positive stuff, but he also got to be with his wife like he wanted to be with her. And so he finished his unfinished business and then got to
guess.
be. But
I just felt like give the character more than 3 years.
He could have had more. I didn't even know that he's going to die eventually.
Well,
like,
sure.
I didn't even need that, right? Like, but like the family goes and visits his grave and all that stuff. So they give that little moment.
It's what's that? Neil Gaiman has a line in Sandman where they say something like, no stories have happy endings if you tell them long enough.
Yeah.
Like, it's like any, like for something to have a happy ending, you have to draw a line in the sand and say, I'm done telling the story, because eventually everyone in the story is going to die. So
it's that, the way they end True Grit, the remake.
Yeah.
Which
I think is more faithful. That's what the book does.
Really?
Yeah. From what I understand, the Coen brothers' True Grit is more of a adaptation of the book than the original film is.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm like, because them and ending movies.
Yeah.
It's like when they take it one step too far, going to the tombstone or whatever, I'm like, I didn't need to. Why do you, but I think there is a choice to make where it's like, if you're especially trying to have this happy feel good, why even do that? Why just cut it? We know he's going to die and be with her eventually. He's not a young man.
Right.
But he's found this family. He's doing all this great stuff, but he's celebrated after he dies like this.
Yeah, you could have faded out at the birthday party and it'd have been like, oh, he finally kind of rebuilt a family for himself.
Yeah, it's going to happen. So like, it's unnecessary, but the social media journalist celebrates his life and is a local hero and all that from the train. So like, Otto's given this big send off and he had people that cared about him and happily ever after and all that. So, I mean, it's schmaltzy. It's cutesy. I think it does trudge into that Hallmark territory. If you don't mind a movie like that, then it's perfectly serviceable. But I think you cast someone that is a little bit more believable as a grump, and I think that it would have been more effective.
Yeah, I definitely think casting someone. I think 20 years ago this would have been Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, Jack Nicholson could do it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
I guess that's it for this one. Let's go around the table and everyone can say where to find them.
This is Joe. Oh, this is Kevin. Follow me on Twitter at KevinRBrackett.
And this is Tom. You can follow me on Twitter at Roger Kubert or on Facebook at facebook.com/Tom O'Keefe. You can find the show online, facebook.com/Real Spoilers. While you're there, like the page, join the group. And of course, don't forget to check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Real Spoilers.
And they'll have a little wait on the Steamboat Willie shirts.
Yes.
It's January 2024. So we have 1 year.
Oh, we got one more year?
1 year. So they were
Okay.
announcing it because it was 1 year away.
Oh.
So we have 1 year of planning and then wait for the Real
Here it
Spoilers
comes.
Steamboat Willie collab.
Yes. So anyway, that's it for this one. Until next time, Sonny hires Marlin to kill him.
Get ready for a spoiler. Won't say it twice, cause we already warned you.